In this lecture, I'm going to show you the different options that are available for you to trade. So the first thing you want to do is you need to decide what is your trade. So let's say you're bullish on Apple, so you would want to buy a call option. But along with being bullish on Apple, whenever you're dealing with options, you also have to have another parameter there, and that is, what is your time frame for this outlook? So when you buy a stock, you really don't have to think about that because you can only buy the stock at the current price. So that's the single dimensional characteristic of stocks. But in options, you have many dimensions, and one of the dimensions is time. So if you're bullish in the next 30 days, then perhaps you might want to go for an option series that is 30 days to expiry. But if you're not sure that this move will happen in the next 30 days, then you have to give yourself more time. So let's look at the differences between the choices of your expiry date. So if you look at the March 2013 series, which have 30 days to expiry, then we know that our 470 call is going for approximately $15, and now it's $15.40. So what if you wanted to give yourself a little bit more time? Then what you would do is you would come to the April series, and let's go take a look at the same option. So if you look at the same strike price at 470, you can see that this option is now worth $21.70. So this comes back to the first part of our course where we said that in general, the more time you have, the more expensive the option is going to be. And that should make intuitive sense because there's obviously more time. So the seller of this option is now looking at 60 days, 65 days. This April series has 65 days to expiry. And so he's basically giving you 65 days time value. And you have, as the option buyer, you have 65 days for this option to move into a profitable zone. So obviously the seller is going to demand a little bit more premium for this. Similarly, if you go down even further, if you go to the May series, which has 93 days left to expiry, you can see that this option is worth even more. This is worth $27. So one of the first things you should realize is that as time goes by, the same option is going to lose value, and it loses this time value. And of course, we're going to cover this aspect in detail in the course on time value. But in this particular lecture, what we want to do is select a strategy. In our case, if we are bullish, we're going to buy a call option, and then you have to select the time frame. So if you're confident of Apple making a strong move to the upside in the next 65 days, then you would go into the April series. And then again, once you do that, then you have another set of choices again. What kind of an option will you buy? Will you buy an in-the-money option like the 440? Will you buy an at-the-money option? Or will you buy an out-of-the-money option? Depending on what choice you make, your probability and your cost for this option is going to change. The 510 call is going to be much less expensive than the 470 call, and the 470 call is going to be much less expensive than the 430 call. The 430 call has intrinsic value and extrinsic value. We saw that in the last lecture. And therefore, it's going to be much more expensive, but it has the best chance of success. In fact, it's already in the money, so it's already in the success zone. The 470 call is not yet in the money, and therefore, you have about a 50-50 shot with the 470 call. And then, of course, the 510 has the least chance. It has a probability of probably around 20% or 15% that over the next 65 days, Apple will actually go to 510 and then go beyond the strike price of 510 by an amount of $8.20. So now remember, we said that as an option buyer, time decay is your enemy. So every day that passes and your option does not move or does not move enough, this option is going to lose some certain value, and it's going to lose that value on a daily basis. So let's come back to our intrinsic and extrinsic value, and I'm just going to briefly touch on this in this lecture because it impacts the choice of the strike price that you make. So if you look at the 470 call, it has an intrinsic value of 0 because it's just out of the money, and it has an extrinsic value of $21.75. Let's go now and look at the 430 call or the 425 call. This 425 call has an intrinsic value of $43 almost, and it has an extrinsic value of only $7.50. Now, time decay will only impact extrinsic value, and you will learn more about time decay and how it affects extrinsic value in the course on time decay. But for now, if you just consider this for a fact that time decay only impacts the extrinsic value, then it's only a portion of this extrinsic value that's going to get destroyed on a daily basis. Now look at the 470 call. The 470 call has an extrinsic value of $21.75 and no intrinsic value. So the time decay on this option is going to be much more than the time decay on this option. So that's one consideration you have to give. And then, of course, as you go out of the money, the time decay on your out of the money options are actually going to be faster. So if you looked at the 510 call, the extrinsic value on this call is 8.27. And although this is less than your 470 call in terms of the extrinsic value, you'll also realize that time decay on out of the money options is actually faster as a percentage of the value of the option than your at the money or in the money options. And why is that? That's because this already has a low probability of success, and with each passing day this probability of success is reducing faster, and therefore you're going to see much more time decay on your out of the money options than what you'll see on your in the money options or your at the money options. Now, in the money options obviously have the least amount of extrinsic value as a percentage of the total value of the option. The total value of the option is between $50.25 to $50.55 if you look at this the 425 call. But out of this $50, only $7 is extrinsic value. So the time decay component is only going to work on this part of the option value. So in the money options are expensive, but they will also face the least time decay as compared to your at the money options or your out of the money options. The out of the money options are going to decay the fastest as a percentage of the value of the option. And these are the details that we'll be completely drilling down in the course on time decay. In the next lecture, we are actually going to try and buy these three options. At least we are going to simulate that we buy these three options, and then we are going to look at the risk profile for the buyer and the seller in the next two lectures.